our story sadly begins with a modern tragedy. On the 4th of May, 2023, so little over a year ago, I was walking through the university library minding my own business when out of nowhere I heard this loud scream behind me. Turning around, I saw her, one of my students, which for the purposes of this video, I'm going to call Lana. And Lana was just bawling her eyes out, clearly in severe distress. "I can't do this anymore, Alex. It's just too much, too overwhelming, and utterly pointless. Whatever it is, I'm sure—" "No, Alex, no more. My mind is finally made up." And at that moment, in a puff of smoke, Lana vanished before my very eyes, never to be seen again. So here's the thing. Students quit university like all the time. It's not really that unusual an occurrence. The cycle of life, que sera sera, whatever. But this was different. Not only was Lana studying at one of the world's leading universities, she was actually also like top of her class. High marks, excellent record, internships lined up for her left and right, really good at fishing, the list goes on and on. It still wasn't enough. She still decided to quit. Why? Why did it happen? And look, to say that this event pushed me down a giant rabbit hole would be the understatement of the century. Why are students quitting college more so than ever before, even if things on the surface appear just fine? Why are teachers and professors 24 hours non-stop decrying the current state of education? Are things really that bad? And why is everyone suddenly dumber? Well, strap in, boys and girls, because do I have a story for you. In a recent article for the New Daily titled, "The world is getting smarter, yet the average university student is getting dumber," demographer Simon talks about what he calls a simple statistical truth. While society is becoming smarter as a collective, the average university student is getting dumber and dumber as the years go by. And you know me, whenever I come across grandiose, all-encompassing statements like this one, my immediate instinct is to put on like my spare hazmat suit and mask, because there is nothing that bitches love more nowadays than grandiose, all-encompassing, apocalyptic statements. Am I right, Jordan? Okay, that's great. However, despite my initial reticence to this message, Lana's story from earlier, something I personally experienced in my academic life, kept nudging at me, it kept pulling at my heartstrings and wouldn't let me move past this idea. And at that point, a few days in this perilous quest for an answer, I stumbled upon a freaking gold mine. A little over a year ago, user FinancialSky8116 posted a simple question on the r-professors subreddit. By the way, did you know that professors have a subreddit now? Go figure. Regardless, amidst this sea of kinda well thought out and less thought out responses, this one in particular stood out to me. What I'm seeing in my classes is that students are just way less independent. Post 2020, the current students just don't know how to operate in this system anymore. Current students just don't know how to operate in the system anymore. When I read this statement, things finally clicked for me. You know, when you have kind of one of those aha moments. A solution for all this was right there, staring me in these very eyes. But in order to see how things can improve from here, we first need to discuss something else. Saying that students are getting dumber, in my opinion, kind of misses the point entirely. Dumb is a dumb word. I think in terms of drive, it's probably reflective of a sense of pessimism about education and the future. They're arriving having been bombarded with attacks on the credibility and intrinsic worth of education, and bombarded with well-intentioned doom about the future of the world. Thank you, Tono Bungay Discounts. Your insights are as wise as ever. Anyway, as I was saying a few seconds ago, I now firmly believe that using the word dumb to kind of describe this entire situation is pushing the conversation in the wrong direction entirely. Also, it's a bit mean, innit? Instead, a much better, more descriptive word, at least in my opinion, is fragile. What I've observed in these last 8 years working as both a researcher but also a lecturer for a whole bunch of students is that students aren't becoming dumber per se, but instead they're becoming more and more fragile as the years go on. Kind of like a cow-sized duck that's made entirely of glass, very easy to break. Roughly since the pandemic days, I've noticed that it takes surprisingly little to push even otherwise very strong students completely off the fucking rails. One small negative comment, one result that's even a bit lower than expected, and suddenly it's the end of the world. That's great, Jordan. Look, I know what you guys are going to say. Okay, Alex, sure, students are fragiles rather than dumb. That's great, hon. But this still doesn't answer the bloody question, mate. Why is this? What's the problem? Crow! And fair point. Fine. No more delaying then. I'm the problem. I did this, and I'm sorry. Now look, I'm obviously being ever so slightly tongue-in-cheek when saying that this is all my fault. Despite my seeming endless supply of delusions of grandeur, destroying the fabric of Western education is something that goes beyond my capabilities. For now. However, it's quite obvious to me that over the past few years, and in 2024 in particular, college skepticism has reached absolutely new heights, with many pieces of online media decrying the current state of higher education. And yes, here and there, I've contributed to this rhetoric. Nobody's perfect, okay? But here's the thing, are there current flaws with our current education system that should be heavily criticized? Well, as Barack Obama said, absolutely. And I will continue pointing out the nonsense in higher education. Don't you worry about that. That said, let's envision this whole thing from, let's say, Lana's point of view. From the point of view of someone going through college and university nowadays in 2024. If you're currently struggling through college, exams, interviews, etc., you're naturally going to ask yourself, is this worth it? Will my efforts pay off in the future? Will my new Lola Rabbit cosplay get the right kind of attention? You know, important questions. If, however, while contemplating the usefulness of college, you are constantly bombarded with society's newfound love for university skepticism, what do you think it's going to happen? Of course, your fragility is going to go to the fucking roof. Every setback is going to start feeling increasingly daunting. We see it happen all the time. Because you convince yourself more and more that that little devil inside of you whispering to just abandon ship, you convince yourself that he might be right all along, that you should give everything up, that you should take the path of Lana. Right, a few Takeaways. The big problem isn't that students are getting dumber. Instead, the big problem is that students are becoming more and more fragile, more likely to abandon a project, a course, whatever, because of a minor inconvenience, because of something that previous students might have gotten over. Whether this is because of social media and kind of social comparisons, or because of this new societal rhetoric of college skepticism, I think the main takeaway here is that it's not something outside an individual student's control. If you're someone now struggling through college, kind of question your beliefs. Do you truly believe that what you're doing here is pointless? Or are you letting these outside influences kind of get to you, making everything feel harder than it has to be? Reach out to that devil inside you and whip him into submission.